What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be going through my top streamers entering week 13 of fantasy football, players at the quarterback, tight end, and defensive positions where if you're in a pinch, facing bye weeks, injuries, you name it, can help you get over the top in week 13 for fantasy football. Again, I mention it on the waivers show every week, but this is crunch time. You guys need these dubs. You guys need to secure your playoff spots, and some of these guys on the streamers list this week can help you do so. So appreciate you guys for the continued support. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like down below. Trying to get this video to over 100 likes as always. And of course, if you're watching, not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button to the channel. We are on the road to 20,000 subscribers as always. Currently at about 17.5 thousand. Appreciate you guys nonetheless. But with that being said, before I get into the first streamer candidate, let's hit the intro. All right, as you guys know, I try to keep these as rapid fire, as concise as possible. We're going to go straight to the quarterback position. And the number one name I want to mention is going to be Deshaun Watson, obviously making his return this week against his former team with the Houston Texans. He's owned in over 50% of leagues, owned in 59% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. So he's probably owned in your league, but if he is somehow still available on that wire of yours, go pick him up. He is your long-term solution at the quarterback position. He should be a top 10 level option for the rest of the season. So if he's available, if you're struggling at quarterback, Matthew Stafford types, your streaming types every week, kind of, have guys like Jared Goff and Kenny Pickett, like I'm going to mention later on. Deshaun Watson is your long-term savior. So he gives you that upside. You can play him this week. Again, he's probably rostered in your league, but if he is somehow available, make sure you go make that waiver bid. But let's get into the first streaming quarterback of the week. That is not Deshaun Watson, and that's going to be Mike White, quarterback of the New York Jets, going up on the road to play the Minnesota Vikings. And Mike White's season got off to a banging start this past week. Totaled over 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns on route to about 25 fantasy points in your standard 4-point passing touchdown leagues. And to be honest, he just looked great. The offense moved efficiently, and now he's entering his second start of the year, facing a Vikings defense that has conceded 32 points per game in its last 3 games and has given up the 5th most points to the quarterback position this year. Opposing fantasy quarterbacks have had their way on this Vikings defense. I think Mike White should be able to build off that impressive performance he had last week, and I think it is a sneaky spot for a Jets upset win. In terms of expectation, I'm going to have him in that quarterback 15 to 20 type of area. But would it shock me at all if he ended up being a top 12 level option, given what we saw last week? Absolutely not. So a little bit more volatility than the next guy I'm going to be talking about, but I definitely think the upside is there in a plus matchup for Mike White. Second quarterback is going to be Jared Goff, quarterback of the Detroit Lions, going up to play the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. And he's quietly been a top 20 quarterback this year and now faces a defense that has given up the 8th most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, coming off a solid performance against that stout Buffalo Bills defense on Thanksgiving. This Lions offense, for the most part, looks like it's finally picking up some rhythm. And after a few down weeks from a pure volume standpoint, we saw 37 passing attempts coming from Jared Goff in that relatively neutral game script against the Bills. 51.5 set over under in this game. He's at home. He's facing a volatile Jaguars defense. I think all those factors serve a recipe for a huge game from Goff. He's going to be a top 15 level quarterback option for this week, going up against the Jaguars. And then finally, my number 3 quarterback this week to stream is going to be Kenny Pickett, quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, going up on the road to play the Atlanta Falcons. And after looking much improved as a passer following the Steelers bye week in these past 3 games that he's played, also, all of them being against top half of the league fantasy football defenses against opposing quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett now faces off against an Atlanta defense that sees the 10th most points to the quarterback position. He's also been a sneaky producer with his legs. 33.5 rushing yards per game in his last 4 matchups. He's not fully there yet as a passer, but I do think that this game against the Falcons could be a sneakily higher scoring game than anybody's going to anticipate. I think he's going to be a top 20 option this week. You should have a better quarterback that you're playing, but realistically, if you're in a pinch, you're suffering Matthew Stafford, who's on the mend, Kyler Murray, who's on bye week, guys like that who you can't have available to your lineup. I definitely think he can get the job done in this game against, like I said, a volatile Falcons secondary, especially with the weapons he has at his disposal. Definitely like Kenny Pickett, also like Jared Goff, and then finally really, really like Mike White. So in order, White, Goff, and Pickett. But let's get on to the tight end position. And my number 1 streaming tight end of the week is going to be Evan Ingram, tight end of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up to play the Detroit Lions at home. And I get it, this past game was really a down week for him, but the usage was still on par with the rest of the season that he's shown. He ran 35 of the team's 42 routes this past week and is the clear alpha tight end of that Jaguars tight end room. Obviously, of course, we need to see the fantasy points match this usage, but I do expect him to get back on track this week. Trevor Lawrence, as I kind of said when I made the claim for Jay Jones being a pickup at the wide receiver position in my waiver wire video, I definitely think has been playing some phenomenal football in recent weeks. Again, I mentioned eighth grade in terms of EPA plus CPOE composite. He's been really good. It boosts the entire offense when he is playing this well. And in 5 of Engram's last 6 games prior to this week, he commanded 4+ targets from Trevor Lawrence. So definitely want that volume on what I think is an ascending offense with that Jacksonville Jaguars team. Next option at the tight end position is going to be Foster Moreau, tight end of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up to play his divisional rival with the Los Angeles Chargers at home this week. He ran 37 out of the 39 team routes this week, including a team second 7 targets in this past game. 4+ targets in all but one game. He's played over 50% of the snaps for this Raiders offense. And in that time stretch, 8.2 PPR points per game. Now plays in a game environment with a 50.5 implied over-under for this game. I expect him to be a fringe tight end 1 this week and a top 15 option as long as Darren Waller is out of the lineup. So next option I like is my third tight end stream of the week, and that's going to be Greg Dulcich, tight end of the Denver Broncos, going up to play the Baltimore Ravens at home. And I get it, last few weeks he's been relatively disappointing, but he did run 32 of the team 40 routes and has gotten incredible usage since he earned that starting spot for the Denver Broncos. The main problem so far has really been the fact that he's only scored 1 touchdown, which has hurt his overall fantasy output, but he's still averaging over 8.1 PPR points per game in that stretch. Again, it's hard to trust him after a couple stinkers of performances, but I do really trust the usage to eventually yield some fantasy output, especially in the streamer type of range. I think he's a fringe top 15 level tight end for me this week. Again, you should have a more set option, maybe a Dalton Schultz, TJ Hawkins, somebody in that area. But again, if you are struggling, if you don't have anybody else to play, I do think that there's a very good blueprint for Greg Dulcich to get back on track. And now finally, we go on to the defensive positions, the DSTs. My number 1 DST stream of the week is going to be the Green Bay Packers traveling on the road to play the Chicago Bears. With the Chicago Bears, they have a 20-point implied team total. Are potentially starting Trevor Siemian again this week with Justin Fields on the mend. Darnell Mooney, as we know, has already been ruled out for the rest of the year, which is a big blow for the Chicago offense, losing their number 1 wide receiver, potentially being without their starting quarterback, not to mention Khalil Herbert already being on the mend. This Bears offense is absolutely depleted, and with Green Bay, you get a 3.5-point road favorite. I expect them to get back on track against this badly beaten Bears offense. I think Green Bay is going to be able to win this game and win this game convincingly. And then finally, my number 2 stream at defense of this week. I usually do 3, but realistically only 2 were worthy of mention. So I didn't want to, fugazi you with a third just to put it in the video. But my second defensive stream of the week is going to be the Cleveland Browns traveling on the road to play the Houston Texans. With the Browns, they are 7-point road favorites in this game. Obviously, we know this is Deshaun Watson's return, his first game as a Cleveland Brown going up against his former team with the Houston Texans. I really expect this defense to work from a positive passing game script. Again, I expect Deshaun Watson to be able to score on a weak Houston D on the other end, which only bodes well for the Browns to potentially get sacks, turnovers, you name it. Kyle Allen starting at quarterback, very volatile piece for the Houston Texans. I think that the Cleveland Browns are going to get up early in this game and let those edge rushers pin their ears back. Houston has an implied 20 team total in this game, and I'd actually be shocked if they even got to that figure. But either way, again, quicker video comparative to the rest on the channel. Make sure you leave a like down below, as I mentioned. Again, 100 like goal, and of course, subscribe to the channel. 17.5 thousand. We are on the road to 20,000 as always. Good luck in your matches. We will see you on Thursday night stream prior to Bills versus Patriots. Take care.
Wire me the money.